Members of Congress are alarmed by the president's recent purge at the Department of Homeland Security. Even some of his own Republican allies are concerned about this. The shakeup is a result of the Trump administration's growing frustration with the number of migrants arriving at the southern border. And now, less than 2 months after the president's national emergency declaration, a number of vacancies and reported exits have left the DHS in a state of chaos. Let's actually go a little higher than that. There are currently 7 vacant U.S. national security leadership jobs, okay? Defense Secretary is open. DHS Secretary is open. UN Ambassador is open. FEMA Director is open. This is Homeland Security. We've got a Secret Service Director. There has been somebody who's just been named to that position. ICE Director is open, and DHS Deputy is vacant as well. There's one man that we know is in charge, however, on the immigration front. Stephanie just said his name. Meet the president's senior policy advisor and right-hand man, Stephen Miller. He's the hardline aide who reportedly has been linked to the massive shakeup at DHS and convincing the president to get much tougher on his stance with Mexico. Now, you may not know a lot about this guy, but let me just bring you up to speed. He's had tremendous influence over the Trump administration since Donald Trump took office, but he's held roles that don't necessarily support being a key decision maker on the topic of immigration.
This is so important. His background is in communications.
Right.
He's a great speechwriter.
Yes.
But in terms of policymaking, if you want to point to someone who can get the job done, it's a Mitch McConnell, who truly understands the nuts and bolts of government work.
Of how you make policy in Congress.
Correct.
Right.
Stephen Miller has no experience doing that. And by the way, the president's frustration thus far has been, why is nobody getting done what I want him to get done? Guess why? Easier said than done. Now you got the speechwriter working on it. Good luck.
So he did craft the Muslim ban. He proposed a ban on non-English speakers and the poor. He even stood in the way of a bipartisan bill funding the border wall that would have granted a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, something that, I don't know, 80+% of Americans support. One of Miller's former high school classmates once claimed that he would often say horrible things about people of other cultures and identities. Things like, quote, I don't think you should be in this country, and I think your family should go back to wherever they came from or speak English more fluently. Members of Congress have their issues with him, too. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar calls him a white nationalist. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says his views on immigration have, quote, never been in the mainstream in the Senate. He said other things. He said, with this guy in charge, we're not going to get any kind of deal on immigration. All right, so that's Stephen Miller. We put him aside for a second, but there's actually a real problem with respect to the Department of Homeland Security. Former DHS and Pentagon spokesperson, now VP of Communications at the Bipartisan Policy Center, David Lupin joins us. David, let's think back to 9/11 and the reasons why the Department of Homeland Security was even created. And part of it was that the politicization of investigations and threats into America's homeland needed to be taken seriously under a department that wouldn't be politicized and wouldn't do that. DHS these days seems to be highly politicized.
Well, and going back again, as you said, the 9/11 attacks are what were the impetus for the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. At the time of the attacks, there were more than 100 federal agencies and departments that had some responsibility for Homeland Security. There was no one place where that responsibility lies. So now we have a Department of Homeland Security as created by law back in 2002 to focus solely on protecting the homeland. And it's always been the case that it's headed by political appointees. That's the way our cabinet works.
Sure.
But I'd say that all the turnover and turmoil at the top and the outward focus, or I'd say exaggerated focus by the president on the southern border detracts from the entire Homeland Security mission. And I note the president said today in the Oval, the mission is Homeland Security. Yes, most of the people who are in the U.S. illegally now are visa overstays. They didn't come across
Right. If you're
the southern
concerned
border.
about that, there's a different fix to it than the wall.
And those asylum seekers, the majority of asylum seekers don't even come from the southern border. They come from different regions entirely. We haven't seen, though, this many open positions at the top of DHS since its inception. From a practicality standpoint, what does that mean in terms of getting the job done day in and day out?
So I think having all of those vacancies is certainly sowing confusion. It creates uncertainty, not only for the workforce, but my concern from a national security perspective is our adversaries are watching closely. And if there's a time to exploit gaps or see opportunities that they may have while we're distracted, while we're confused, while there's all this uncertainty in these temporary positions, that's a real concern. Now, the men and women of the department up and down are still focused on the mission. But as I said, when you have a president that's focused only on one sliver of the entire Homeland Security mission, not cybersecurity, not election security, not aviation security, not counterterrorism, all the great things that Homeland Security does. It's all been boiled down to this idea of the southern border. And I'm, again, concerned from a national security perspective that our eye is off the ball.
Yeah, can you imagine if we were having this conversation day in and day out about cybersecurity, a real threat to our democracy and to how we do things in America, but we're talking day in and day out about immigration. Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.